Breaking news this Sunday night, President Trump is suddenly hinting that after days of slamming the $900 billion coronavirus relief package, he could be ready to sign it. This is an announcement that could come at any minute. The bill could restore benefits, which ran out overnight for millions of Americans who've lost their jobs, and so much more in this pandemic, along with providing direct payments to Americans and giving states aid to help with vaccinations to start to get on the exit ramp for this pandemic. I want to get straight to CNN's Jeremy Diamond, who is traveling with the president. He is in West Palm Beach, Florida. Jeremy, what are you hearing now?
Well, Dana, we have that cryptic tweet from the president where he took to Twitter saying good news on COVID relief bill, information to come. And now we are waiting for official word as to whether or not the president has signed this legislation or intends to sign it this evening. We do know that the president left his Mar-a-Lago golf club and that he went to dinner at his he left his Mar-a-Lago resort and is now at his golf club where he is having dinner. Whether the president has actually signed that legislation is something that we are trying to confirm right now, which is why I'm looking down at my phone here. But all indications are that the president either has or appears that he will sign this legislation this evening. The question, Dana, once we find out, will be whether or not the president actually got anything out of this. It was 5 days ago that the president appeared to signal that he might even veto this legislation because he was complaining about a series of provisions in the spending bill that is attached to this coronavirus relief bill, provisions that, of course, were actually in his budget request to Congress, and then also this issue of the stimulus checks, $600 to $2,000 is what the president was demanding. Of course, that legislation was not amended. House Democrats actually tried to bring a unanimous consent request to the floor of the House, but it was not approved. So now the question is whether the president was able to secure perhaps some other agreement with congressional leadership, like the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. And Dana, I am now just getting word that the president has indeed signed this legislation. So 5 days after making this threat, President Trump has signed this massive spending bill, which includes $900 billion of coronavirus relief. But of course, we should note, Dana, that this only happened after the president allowed those unemployment benefits for more than an estimated 12 million Americans to lapse at midnight last night. So while the president is signing this legislation, it is not without some pain for millions of Americans that has already occurred. But at the same time, perhaps millions of Americans can also begin to breathe a sigh of relief this evening, knowing that some help at least will be on the way.
Yeah, and Jeremy, I was just going to take it back from you to let you look down at your phone. I've been there before. I know what it's like to try to get news from sources while you're talking on TV. It's not easy. If anybody can do it, you can. I know. But this is big news, and it shouldn't be big news. It shouldn't be big news because this should have been signed the moment that the president got this legislation. And it's because his team was involved. His Treasury Secretary was a major negotiator in this bipartisan deal. Was it what the president wanted? No. Was it what Democrats wanted? No. Was it what his Republican colleagues on Capitol Hill wanted? No. That's why it's called compromise. It's not called I get everything I want. I mean, it's the art of legislating. And the fact is that what the president has been saying for the past several days on Twitter, that there needs to be a higher amount when it comes to the direct payment. What he just signed, what is now the law of the land, people will start to get, who qualify, $600 checks for individuals. He wanted it to be $2,000. Democrats wanted that all along. They were ready to try to call his bluff. What we don't know, and as you mentioned, is whether or not somehow behind the scenes he was able to convince his fellow Republicans. They were the ones pushing back on that $2,000 payment, whether he somehow convinced them to go along with it in some way, shape, or form this coming week. We don't know the answer to that right now.
Yeah, and if he did secure that kind of a commitment, at most it would probably be a commitment from the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to actually bring that legislation that House Democrats are planning to introduce in the House chamber to allow that legislation to come to the floor in the Senate. I would be highly skeptical, and I'm sure you doubt it as well, that the president at this hour would have secured a commitment to actually have that legislation pass with 60 votes in the Senate. That is something that perhaps he will still need to work on. But either way, I mean, the president may characterize that as a win, even if he did secure that commitment. But he could have had this win perhaps before this actually passed in Congress. And it is now coming at the cost of financial insecurity for millions of Americans at a time of deep financial uncertainty and in the middle of the holiday season. I mean, it is just remarkable. We have more than 20 million Americans right now in this country who are unemployed. People who have children, people whose children are hoping for Christmas gifts, for Hanukkah gifts, for whatever it may be. And perhaps they weren't able to provide that for their children because of the fact that they weren't sure what kind of money was going to be coming in. Whether it was the $600 stimulus checks, that was money that some Americans were counting on to be coming this coming week. Now, even though the president has signed this legislation, it is going to mean a delay in those checks actually going out, as well as those unemployment benefits, which, you have to deal with these different state systems, state by state. It's all different. And some of these states have very archaic systems, and it may take days, as much as a week maybe, for those unemployment checks to actually begin to go out. Again, even if the president characterizes this as a win tonight, if he was able to secure some kind of deal on those stimulus checks, it came at a pretty severe cost, Anna. And I think that's something to note tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jeremy, I'm going to let you go do some more reporting. We'll get back to you, I'm sure, shortly. I want to bring in now Democratic Congressman